It is 10 o'clock. We are here for Redwood Coast Transit Authority's Friday, February 22nd, 2019, 10 a.m. meeting, not our regular meeting time. Thank you all for adjusting your schedules to be here so that we could get this meeting rolling. I guess we can call the meeting to order, please.
Director Roberts? Here. Director Gitlin?
Here.
Director Berkowitz?
Here.
Director Fallman?
Here.
Madam Chair Keim?
Here. All right, let's stand and say the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we need to go into closed session first. Okay. All right, we will be right back. We'll head into closed session. Okay, and we're back from closed session. So should we discuss do we report out on that? Or?
There's nothing to report out on
Okay.
closed session this time. Yeah, we
All
can
right.
just
Well,
move
then
along.
we will move on to number 4, discuss and direct our CTA legal counsel regarding the general manager's contract.
So I will introduce this topic, and then I will let Mr. Rye talk about the finer points of what him and his partner are proposing as a continuation of their contract. What we've proposed as options here are to continue the contract that we have with the general managers now, and that is actually the recommendation that we're making to the board. The other option that you have is to issue an RFP and get proposals from additional potential general managers and proceed in that direction. I think given that the general managers have been here for 3 years, are interested in staying on for an additional 2 years, it would be prudent at this time, given that they have done, you know, a more than adequate job. I think they've done a great job, but it's not up to me, obviously, that an additional 2 years makes sense for the board. And as I said, I'll let Mr. Rye discuss a couple of tweaks to the contract that him and Mr. Herron would like to see.
Okay.
Thank you, Autumn. Again, I just wanted to, on behalf of Dan and I, thank you for entertaining us and having us on board for the last 3 years. It's been fun, and there, like any other agency, there's a good learning curve involved, so we've learned a lot about the agency, and I think we've guided it through some challenging times these last 3 years and actually made it a better agency than it was before. And I think that's really all we can hope for as professionals, is to leave it better than you found it. So what we've proposed in the extension, if you will entertain such an extension, is we proposed, you may recall a year ago, I was directed to take on the advertising revenue program, make it a reality, and a new revenue stream for the agency. And we did that, and then during that process, we also identified the weakness that we don't have any hours left to do basic marketing that's really holding Redwood Coast Transit back. So we then the board provided direction that we can spend up to the amount that we're making on the ad revenue, or 10,000, whichever is less each year, to fund that marketing endeavor and those efforts, hours and materials. So that's been a huge help. So what you see on page 2 of the staff report is that we're asking for 5% increase on the base contract for this next year and 3% for the second extension year, which would be 2021, and just keep maintaining the up to 10,000, assuming the ad revenue program is healthy. It could be less if we're not doing so well, although we're off to a good start. So at least year 1, we're going to realize 10,000 or more in revenue, it looks like. And then the total annual value of what the base contract plus the additional up to 10,000 might be max is on the right-hand column. And we'd like to continue helping you guys deliver this transit agency.
Okay.
Do we have any kind of a reserve at all?
Yeah, we have reserves of about 300,000. I believe, I don't have the audit with me, but we just had an audit accepted, I think, back in December, and it was over 300. So it's good. I'd like to have a little more than that, but all things considered, it's pretty good for a small agency.
Is that increasing or decreasing?
It actually increased. I think it was about 200,000 3 years ago when we came on board, but we've been fortunate, and we were very decisive in cutting service when we lost that funding a year ago. We did not wait and let it deplete our money. So yeah, by hook or crook, we actually raised the reserves a bit during the last 3 years.
Joe, tell us what you see in your crystal ball, challenges in the future as you move forward in your role here.
I was going to wait for the board workship for that.
Well,
in general,
present.
very succinctly, I would say the challenges are, I see flat funding, relatively flat funding, even no matter how aggressive we get. And I see rising costs to deliver service, and our labor costs are going up. One thing I think, it's not so much spelled out here, but we've talked rather extensively about it, is I believe the board wants, the community wants, I want, Chuck wants, I think we all want more management and good management of the service like our other transit agency peers, but the current contract barely allows that. So I think that's an ongoing challenge, that if you parse out a little more money for me or whoever's doing the management, it's going to have to come out of service. Because right now, Mark Wall built this, and prior boards, not all on Mark, but the system was built to maximum service, minimum management. If you guys can kind of get a handle around that. I think maybe we went a little too far on the service and a little too light on the management, to be brutally honest with you. So I think that'll continue to be a challenge.
You see this board addressing that issue of de-emphasizing that aspect of it, where we put more resources into developing service? Is that what I heard you say? Rather than management?
No, I think actually what I'm trying to say, not very well, is I'm trying to say the opposite of that. I think we probably should spend a little more money on our administration and run our operation a little bit better, than put out as much service as we do now, some of which is very marginal productivity wise, and people aren't riding some of it very well. So I think we actually should be inward focused over time, and maybe a little more into our management, and a little, and make sure we run a good service, have good bus stops, have clean bus stops, this, that, and the other, and a little less towards some fringe services that aren't producing very well anyway. That's my take.
Do you see another overture toward national and state parks in helping those two agencies develop and solve a problem they have with the maintenance of their roads by taking passenger traffic into ingressing and egressing the parks and putting it into RCTA buses? Do you see that as a subject?
I think it's something we can continue talking with them about. For sure, we're aggressive in trying to develop bus stops and routes that serve and get people to their attractions, for sure. Stout Grove in particular has a whole set of challenges that might not make it good for our system to try to address, but certainly the other parks that are along the highways and the routes that we can get to make plenty of sense, and we've already started that with the stops at Prairie Creek and the National Park at Visitor Center at the beach, Kuchel or whatever. So yeah, we started that, and I think we should continue it with more stops at some of those key attractions.
Let me just take that subject, and I don't want to dwell too much on it, but that was a pretty big subject over the last 2 years we talked about. Unfortunately, it hasn't eventuated, and always the money is the issue. But do we need to reevaluate some of our equipment that we use to ingress and egress areas like Stout Grove for two purposes? Number one, we want to help them, the agencies, maintain their roads. And number two, by getting the traffic out of there, we can put more people in a small bus to enjoy these areas. Do you see the Redwood Coast Transit Authority playing a more active role in that?
I think we should play a role in keeping those conversations going. I would caution that we have not even enough money really to maintain our current fleet. As far as replacing buses, we're really going to be challenged just to do that. And it seems to me that all the evidence points towards a specialized vehicle being needed if we're going to do anything up in the hills. So, like off-road, up on Stout Grove, something like that. So I think that would be a specialty vehicle fleet that we don't even have the funding for. So I would caution before we commit to the public that we're going to do that. But I think we should continue to work with and talk with the parks and see what we can legitimately do for them and how we can support them. But I wouldn't want to commit to a separate fleet when we don't have enough money for our own at this point.
Thank you.
So when we're the direction or recommendation from staff is for just a direction, do you need consensus or a polled vote?
I need consensus. Okay. A polled vote will come when we have either one of the two documents that you direct me to create.
Okay.
So there's no motion required to
a motion is fine to direct staff direct me one direction or another. So follow the recommendation.
Then I will make that motion to draft an extension of the current contract for an additional 2-year term.
Second.
Okay, and so that includes the increase in salary, Roger?
5%.
5%, and then 3%.
So
Okay.
I will assume that what we're doing is based on the staff report as it appears
Okay.
here.
All right.
Assuming that this carries.
Okay. All righty. So we have a motion, second. You want us to pull the vote?
And all in
or-
favor will work.
Oh,
Yes.
All in
Yeah,
favor?
aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I have my direction, and
Okay.
you can expect a contract to be on the next agenda.
Okay, Joe, you're in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is election of officers, chair and vice chair.
Is there a tradition of the board to switch between agencies on who is what position, and is that in the bylaws at all?
I don't know,
You don't know?
but I'm going to go with Mr. Wright.
That's been the practice since I got here, and I think it does come from the bylaws. So I think the chair position, she's supposed to rotate back and forth. So it was the cities this last year, so I think it probably rotates back to the county for 2019, and then 2020 back to the city.
Nominate Board Member Berkowitz for chair.
I'll second that. Yeah.
Director Gitlin?
Yes.
Director Roberts?
Yes.
Director Berkowitz?
Yes.
Director Fallman?
Yes.
Madam Chair Kime?
Yes. All right. And now we need a vice chair.
Right, and I think that's also been rotating, and it was county in 2018 because it was Lori, so we'll go back to city then
Okay.
for 2019.
So I'd like to nominate Councilor Fallman.
But second?
All right, let's pull the vote.
Director Berkowitz?
Yes.
Director Gitlin?
Yes.
Director Fallman?
Yes.
Director Roberts? Madam Chair Kime?
Yes. All right, musical chairs.
Congratulations.
Ceremonial switching of chairs.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, that's okay. I'll just,
we haven't been that formal here.
I think you're fine, Alex. It was Lori.
It was Lori.
Yeah. We moved around. I think you're fine, Alex. I'll just switch with Bob.
I don't think that's in the bylaws.
No, I'm happy to.
And 2 cups of coffee today.
Turn it over.
Nice and snappy.
I assure you, I'm happy to play musical chairs. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. So let's move on to approve the minutes of December 19th, 2018.
Move to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Director Gitlin?
Yes.
Director Roberts? Yes. Director Fallman?
Yes.
Director Kime?
Yes.
Chairman Berkowitz?
Yes. Well, that was easy.
Chairman Berkowitz, if I could just step in here. It's a tradition of this board to ask me to leave after I'm no longer necessary as a cost-saving measure. So I am going to take my leave. It's been a pleasure being here with you guys this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Adam.
Are you sure you're no longer necessary?
She's always necessary, but we can't afford her all the time. Thank you, Adam.
All right, we'll move on to item number 7, which is discuss and approve the 2019 RCTA Board of Directors meeting calendar. Joe, do you
Yes.
have any
Yeah.
information on that?
I do. I'll kind of, again, and I'm sure you guys have noticed by the cough drops in front of me, We could have some issues with my voice today. Anyway, so this item is carried forward mainly at my request, and I really thank the board for even entertaining it. For many years, this board has met on the third Wednesday of the month, canceling when necessary. We generally meet like 6 to 8 times a year at 3:30 p.m. third Wednesday. For me, living far away and traveling in, that has basically then taken up most of my week getting here and back, because I like to come in a day or two early and stay a day late so I can do work while I'm here, because that's one of the ongoing challenges of living far away from the service areas. It makes delivering some projects difficult. Anyway, so it would be easier for me, and my preference going forward, if we're going to extend contracts and continue working together, if we could look at a Monday or Friday so we could utilize the weekends for some of the travel burden. So and then we brought this to the group in December, but we had a 3-person board, so we barely had a quorum, so we decided to shoot for today's date. Actually, originally we looked at the week before, but we tried for Friday in February tentatively, and then to bring it back as a full discussion item. So that's where we are. We'd like to get a permanent home, at least for the rest of the year, 2019. And we've looked at working with Kylie here at the Board of Soups, who manages this room. We identified some windows that we could do it. And I think there's even been some changes, because I was talking to Kylie yesterday, I believe it was, or the day before. So even since this went to press a few days ago, there might have been a slight change. But the latest, my notes from my call with her the other day, is that the 4th Monday would work. 2nd Monday could work, and then I believe the 3rd or 4th Fridays could work, but some folks maybe don't want to meet on Fridays and would prefer Monday, so I will let the board have that discussion. Hopefully everyone's got their calendars, and we would be looking at probably not meeting in March. So in general, it'll be every other month, but we'll probably have to go back to back later in the spring. Just because we have this short-range plan to get through. So I'm almost envisioning an April, May, and maybe June meeting. We might go like 3 in a row, but then generally every other month the rest of the year.
And the staff report, it notes that you already want to have a meeting on Friday, the 31st of May. Why is that?
That's for our consultant. We were working, the short-range transit plan consultant is available then, and they don't think they'll have the draft plan ready for you guys until then, so it was kind of project-driven that date. We could try to move it, but that's what I was able to negotiate with Ronnie on that, as a date she could come up here for her second and final presentation to you guys to present the plan. So we're going to go through the plan in depth in April, with me being the presenter, but she wants to be here, of course.
So Joe, talk to me about Mondays now. LAFCO meets Monday afternoon, 4 o'clock, the 4th Monday.
Yep.
Or were you thinking of a meeting before that time, let's say at 2 o'clock time?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If we could do 1:30 or 2, it would get us out of here before LAFCO safely, that we want to have some time for them to set up. And Chair Berkowitz and Director Gitlin are both currently on LAFCO, so there's some synergy there. They're going to be here anyway. So that would work for me, and Kylie's only concern was that we'd be done in time so we didn't get all trample on each other when we're leaving and they're arriving. So maybe if we could do 1:30, it would probably assure her better that we could pull that off. But 2 o'clock could work. We just have to make sure we keep our meetings to like 90 minutes.
So on April, what is the specific date you're looking at?
If it's the 4th Monday in April?
If I may interject, I'm also the secretary for the LAFCO meeting, so if it does go over a little bit, I will be the one preparing for that meeting as well.
Oh, that helps.
So I will already be here for the RCTA and LAFCO.
Thank you, Nicole. That's really good. That helps a
April
lot.
22nd is the 4th Monday?
Correct. April 22nd is the 4th
And then
Monday.
May 27th is a holiday.
Yes, and that's the one that we need a special meeting that works for the consultant, so we tentatively slotted that one in on Friday the 31st as just a special meeting date, just because that's when I could get her up here and the product would be ripe that would fit our schedule, because we do need to adopt that by June if humanly possible. So that one's just an oddball that we that's away from our normal routine. But then back in June again, we'd be looking at the Fourth Monday would be the 24th.
So for May, what is the date you're looking at?
31st, which is the fifth Friday, the last day of the month. But if that, if I can get a consensus from you guys, yay or nay on that, I could try to move it. But that was what worked for the consultant and I.
I can make the 31st work.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I ask another question about the other Mondays that involve first and third
Sure.
Mondays, which is the city council day?
Right.
So what were you thinking? Is it the third Monday is what you said of the month?
I kind of discarded first and third because council needs to be in here.
Okay.
So I didn't even pursue those. Second Monday looked like we might be able to do it.
Second Monday, which would be you're needing a meeting in March?
No, I don't think we need one in March. We're going to need to meet in April, though. And the April one, traditionally, if we can stay with what we've done, I like to do the workshop format, so we wouldn't even be in this room. So if there was a conflict, it wouldn't be a problem that month, unless it was a problem for one of you guys on a different board that you needed to attend.
And your time again?
1:30?
We had talked about 3:30 or 4.
In the afternoon.
Yeah, but if we go to fourth Monday, it's going to have to be earlier because LAFCO. So we'd be like, I would recommend 1:30 if we could do it.
Come back just a second for you saying the second Monday. So the second Monday, for instance, in April is April 8th.
Yeah.
You could have an afternoon meeting then. I'm just looking at May. May 13th would be the second Monday.
Yeah.
As we're looking at May and June, which again, you're talking about May 10th.
June 10th, yeah.
I'm sorry, June 10th. Either one. It's either the fourth Monday at 1:30 or the second Monday at our normal, let's say 4 o'clock time. Is that what our choices look like?
That's definitely two of the top ones, but it's up to the board. If there's other choices that want to emerge, we certainly can entertain them.
The second Monday, would that be good for you?
Yeah, either one of those work for me.
I prefer the Friday meeting times. I think that will avail you with, let Joe do the most work possible. He can drive here on Wednesday, work on Thursday, Friday, and then spend the weekend driving instead of leaving here on Wednesday and getting back to wherever you need to be by, you're not doing work again until Thursday morning, Wednesday evening. I think that just kind of sets it up to where you're actually doing more down here. You only get one drive. Is that clicking?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think there is a slight advantage to me on that, but yeah, I'm deferring to the board. I could live with either one.
So that's my thing. That's my priority with this. I can understand if Monday works for everybody else, but I think Friday really maximizes your working time.
Well, I'll just remind everybody that there's a legislative conference coming up. I think it's in the third week of April. I have to look at it. Hold on. And also there's CSAC. There are a couple of times when our two county representatives may not be available for a Friday meeting. I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. I kind of like the Monday. One of those two dates would work, either the 1:30 on the fourth Monday of the month prior to LAFCO. Bob, are you?
Yeah.
Is that something you can embrace?
That looks like it would be great for me, sure.
Or the second Monday at our normal afternoon time. Twiddly twiddle-dum. I mean, either one looks good for me. I'll make the motion to change our dates to the fourth Monday at 1:30 of each month, and then with the exception of the 31st, because of Memorial Day, it'll be extended. So I'll make that motion.
I like the Friday meetings myself. And this is, every other month that we're generally meeting, so, conferences aside, I highly doubt they're gonna be a conflict.
The only problem we have, and Roger's already mentioned this, is a number of conferences and places we have to be that are usually begin on a Thursday and Friday. And that would mean that both Roger and myself would be gone. And considering that fact, probably Monday works best for both of us, because it doesn't conflict with any conferences that we're going to be on, or any committee assignments that take us out of the area.
There's a conference on April 26th.
Let me see.
Yeah, it's a legislative conference.
Yeah.
That's CSAC.
Yeah. So.
What about the third Friday? Is there a reason? Remember, we do it on Fridays. So.
The third Friday, of course, in April is Good Friday.
I think third Friday is open, yeah. I don't remember hearing anything bad about third Friday either.
Yeah, I think that third Friday is just before Easter. People are away. I know I'll be with family in Sacramento. That doesn't work with me.
I think Fridays are problematic, just because it's getaway day for a lot of people. And I realize that if we have an opportunity to make it more flexible at the beginning of the work week, I think Friday's going to pose problems where we're may have trouble getting a quorum.
Mr. Chair, I think a member of the public wants to chime in, just whenever you think's a good time for public comment on this, if you want to entertain that.
Yeah, guest.
Yes, my name is Kent Ray, and I live in Gasky. This is my first time to attend the RCT board meeting, but I have some real serious, crucial issues and points to make to the board, and I did not know if the public had a chance to make comments. I have it won't take that much, that long, but I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Is it on this subject, sir?
Huh?
Is it on this subject?
It is on the bus system.
No, is it on the subject having to do with the scheduling of dates?
Is this
I think there's
anywhere
a
else
public-
on the agenda? is what we're
I have no
asking.
idea if it has anything to do with the
Okay.
agenda on today or not, but
Well, I'm going to go ahead and allow it, so whatever your comments are.
yes, sir, I've been here since 2016, and riding the bus is the only way I have transportation. I don't own a car. And what has been happening is I've been seeing more and more problems and more left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing, and it kind of clashes with each other to keep it being an efficient bus system. And then the routes were made and then they got changed. And the reason why I bring that up is because I ride the 199 all the time to Gasky and back and forth to town. And they rerouted 199 to go around to the high school and go 3 blocks out of the way around the school and come back to the 101 to turn and to go into downtown from Porter Pines and the Shell station there at the corner. And I don't know what corner that is. I just know it's 199. I don't know the name of the cross street. And I felt like, you know, instead of having the bus go completely out of their way to pick people up that's not even there, 11 out of 12 times there's nobody to pick up or drop off, but they still are routed to go out of the way. So I felt like maybe having 199 and the number 20 going to Arcata and Smith River, the buses that are scheduled to go in and out of town, they should be type of express bus, where they don't go the local milk run route and have the milk run route be done by another bus. Now, that way it don't take all of us our time up trying to make appointments to get to where we're going, because they got to take 3 or 4, 7 blocks out of the way to actually get to downtown. And the thing was working just fine, because that's how the buses were routed, was to go straight into downtown from Gasky and not go all over town as a milk run to pick people up that's no longer at the bus stops. So that was one issue.
Well, I think your time has expired, so I appreciate the comments, and definitely we'll take that
I
into
probably need to
consideration.
get an email on somebody, because I got crucial stuff to discuss.
Sure.
Hold on, Mr. Chairman. Hold on, Mr. Chairman. First of all, sir, can I? You bring up very valid points, and I think I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I have some serious issues.
But let me say, I think we have to have it in a proper format where there's open public comments.
That's why I don't mind emailing somebody about it, so we can schedule a meeting and discuss
I'll be
it.
happy to meet with you, sir, after this meeting to hear some of your concerns and bring that to Joe's attention. There's no question about that. We do that. That's what we're here for.
I have no problem with that.
But I think right now we're trying to figure out what days we're going to meet to discuss your problems and your concerns. So there you go. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
See me
Ryan.
after the meeting.
All right, let's move on. We still have to make this decision, and it looks like we don't have a consensus. Maybe we might be able to solve this by at least setting our meeting for next month. And then we can consider the rest of the dates at that meeting. Does that sound like something we could do?
Sure.
Okay. Do we have consensus on that? So we had an idea of picking the fourth, was that the fourth Monday in April, April 22nd?
Yes.
Okay.
That's our next meeting, or is in March?
I think that was the motion you were starting to make, right? The fourth Monday at 1:30.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it effectuates in March or that first meeting.
It'd be April.
April.
Yeah, I don't think
right.
we're going to need to meet in March.
So we
Yeah,
don't, okay.
Monday, April 22nd at 1:30.
So we need a consensus on that? Is that?
That's exactly what
all
we're
right,
looking for.
I support that.
Okay. Everybody else?
Monday, the 22nd.
Correct.
All right.
All right, Joe. So we have that down, built in stone, and then we'll consider the other times available at that time.
Okay, and is the board, are we going to be, I heard pretty good feedback earlier that we could do that special meeting on Friday, May 31st, which will cover our May meeting, so then we're really looking at the next meeting that we don't know when we're going to meet would be the June one. Is that what I'm hearing? Did I read everyone correct on that?
31st was fine with me.
Yes.
31st is fine.
31st works.
Okay, because that one works for the consultant team that's got to travel up here, so that'd be good.
Right.
And both of those would be at 1:30.
Yeah.
We could do, that's an open slate. What time would you like to meet on Friday, the 31st?
I'm open.
Because we're going to meet over at the, no, that one would be here, right?
Okay.
That one would be here.
So why don't we just say 1:30?
Okay.
All right. Don't have any confusion that way. All right. So we have two meetings that we have suggested, and we have consensus, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Will the April meeting be here or at the RCTA building?
Here.
The April meeting I was going to invite you guys to the facility in April, because that way we can really dig deep. We're going to go through the short-range plan in minutia. It's a great opportunity to kind of meet in a little bit more collegial fashion. So I was hoping we could do April at the yard and then back here for May.
Okay.
So the next meeting will be at the RCTA yard,
Yes,
and then May 31st it'll be here.
correct. Thank you.
All right, we have that. Let's move on. Discuss and approve 2019 RCTA Board of Directors meeting. Well, we've done that. No, yes, we've done that. I'm sorry. Adopt Resolution 2018-1907 authorizing application to Caltrans for RCTA fiscal year 18 and 19 allocation of LCTOP funds and designated the general manager as authorized agent to execute grant documents. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item is one of our relatively new and relatively modest funding sources, but it's growing. It's getting to be more important. We've been getting it for about 3 years now. I think this will be the fourth allocation year that we are eligible to receive it. It came from the cap and trade funding that was created a few years ago with the SB1. And the first year we used it, that was right about when I came on board, so I think the decision may have even been made just before I got here. But first year we dedicated it to install a couple bus shelters. So that went to capital, but it can be used for capital or operating. It's a pretty flexible source. Second year is when we started to use it for our student bus pass program. And then third year we used it exclusively, which was last year, for the student bus pass program, which morphed into an ID card, you ride free. We're all pretty excited about that. That was a popular project with the board. So this year, two things have happened. The allocation for Redwood Coast Transit has grown quite a bit. And then at the same time, our experience with the new program at the colleges is that it's not growing as fast as we'd like it to, so we're not going to be able to spend down this much funds in a particular year. So that leads to staff's recommendation for this year's allocation that we split it up, and that we set aside a good chunk of it to continue the students ride free, and with the twist that I'm going to recommend we consider opening it up to the high school students as well. But then the other is to set aside some of it to pay for reinstatement of the Saturday service, which was one of the things we cut a year or so ago that's been most complained about and probably caused the most pain. So that would, you know, this source is not going to allow us to permanently fund anything, but for a couple, 3 years, that might pay for the full operating cost to bring that second bus back. Because what happens is we usually have 2 buses on our Crescent City routes. Between the 4 routes, they flip-flop, so one of them is on one route and it does the other, and together each route gets covered once an hour. What we had to do on Saturdays to reduce the level of service and save some money is we pulled one of those buses out, so only 2 of the routes run on Saturdays and our minor holidays. This would reinstate that, so on those Saturdays and minor holidays, of which there's like 56 a year, the Route 2 and Route 4 would also have Route 1 and 3 running with them. So that's been something that we've gotten a lot of negative feedback about from the service cuts that we did a year or so ago.
When would that be effective?
That would be effective July 1, so next fiscal year.
Okay, how would you be promoting that?
We would put it back in the schedule, maybe do some rider alerts, some kind of advertisement that, you know, you asked or you spoke, we listened kind of thing. But I think it'd be very popular. The current riders are still struggling with the fact that they have a little longer one-way loops or longer walks to the bus stop with those 2 routes inactive on Saturdays.
All right. Do we have a, please?
I was going to ask you, since you brought that up, that the students ride for free on the bus system, would that also include veterans? Because me being a resident of California for 38 years this year, Sonoma County is the only county in the entire state that I know of, riding buses everywhere, that acknowledges veterans. And as long as you show them a VA card, you're on and you're off. You don't have to pay. So I did not know if the student grant for riding free would be extended to veterans. That was my only question.
It could be, sir. That'd be totally up to the prerogative of the board, but I can collaborate with what the gentleman said, because I came to you guys from Sonoma County. So yeah, their program of including veterans in their similar college program at Sonoma State and Santa Rosa JC, it's been very popular, and they allow it with veterans ID cards. They allow their veterans to ride as well, and then they backfill it with other funds, kind of like what we're doing here. So it's not unprecedented to do that if the board wanted to entertain it. It would help us spend down the funds a little faster. I mean, at this point, that's one of the challenges we have with this source, is we're not spending it down as fast as we'd like.
One of the things you may want to consider is some veterans don't have a veterans card, but they all have a DD-214, which is your separation papers, and you can shrink them down to wallet size. So if we're going to do that, we might be able to do veterans cards.
Is this the question?
And DD-214.
Wasn't trying to ruffle feathers.
Sure. Well, we're still on the item 8, adopting a resolution. And
Motion to approve.
A motion for that.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Please call the vote.
Director Gitlin?
Yes.
Director Kime?
Yes.
Director Fallman?
Yes.
Director Roberts?
Yes.
Chairman Berkowitz?
Yes.
Okay, so these grant documents that we just approved, at this time, you're saying that we need to modify how we're spending some of these grants. So Is that what you're looking for right now? Or are you just opening the discussion for this?
I think what we were looking for was direction to this year's program of projects for this grant to expand it beyond. Last year, we just did the student ride-free program, and it's going well. It's just not burning through the money fast enough.
Okay.
So this year's allocation's like 50% bigger than last year's. So that's why we recommended 2 projects and splitting the money up. And then, you know, as the staff report says, I wanted to get some direction from you guys on whether we should consider opening it up to the high school kids as well, because the short-range plan that we're going to cover later is going to talk a little bit about maybe creating some special routes to capture some of that market. And this would go great to, nothing works better on a new service than the word free.
Well, the other
And then the gentleman offered a good idea that maybe we could include veterans as well, which would be great for public relations and would also help us spend the money down a little bit faster. The only caveat I would have, the only concern I have with that, and I talk to Brian Albee at Sonoma County all the time, is when the money runs out, if we have to start charging veterans. But if it's not a big amount of people, maybe we never do. So it could be a non-issue. I'm just saying, I worry a little. This money's not, they tend to not want to fund the same project more than 2, 3, 4 years in a row. That's been my experience with these guys at Caltrans with the LC top money. So at some point, the student subsidy will probably go away, or maybe the partnership will have to change a little bit. And the same thing might be said if we add veterans to it as well. But we can deal with that at a later date. I just wanted to get it out in the public now, so we don't think this is going to be a permanent thing forever, because it's not.
Okay, so you're satisfied with approving the this resolution as it stands?
Yeah,
You just want to
yeah, we can approve it as it stands, and if the board's interested in adding veterans, what we can do is when we get together again, I can bring some more information about that, and we can talk about it some more. Nothing will start until summer anyway.
Right. I think if we're going to add the high school students on there, I think it's a great idea, and especially, you know, we want to create new writers. And if these kids can figure out a way, you know, to get to the state parks and, you know, go spend the day at the river or whatever, all summer long, you know, I think that would be a great opportunity.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of registering people to vote at school when they turn 18. I mean, you get them young, get them early, then they'll keep using the thing over and over again. So, yeah, get some bus riders early.
Well, I mean, that's the whole conversation we've been having, is creating new writers.
Right.
So I like it.
Lifelong new writers.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we're going to let you have one more crack at it, and then we're going to have to move on.
To connect this here, because I know in other cities they get federal funding. I don't know what's going on with Crescent City if they get federal funding because of lack of finances, of lack of riders, but they still have money to keep them operating, and they get federal funding for that. I don't know if Crescent City is even eligible for that, or if they have it already set up, or can get it set up, but maybe that's a way that the veterans and the children and the students can ride for free because the federal funding is making up for the lost money not getting paid. I'm just putting that out there.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on to the presentation and discussion of the 2019 SRTP Technical Memo Number 2, which is this document. Huge.
Little lightly.
Joe, you want to?
Yes, I'm going to carefully talk about the highlights without losing my voice on this one. But definitely any questions, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, and it might be another chance for everyone to chime in. So this is the latest deliverable. We're moving along. We're probably over halfway through with our short-range plan. This will guide our operation for the next 5 years down the road, so it's a very important document. The Tech Memo 2 is kind of an existing conditions analysis. It sort of looks at what we are today, plus it adds mission statement, goals, and performance standards, which are, some of them are you know, obviously policy oriented stuff, but some of them then can be used for evaluating different services in the future. For example, if we have services that are not producing so many riders per hour and we have a situation where we have to or choose to cut some of the lower productive stuff to put the resources elsewhere, these performance standards give us a framework to do that. And then at the very end, kind of the most exciting part, I thought, because I love the, I know where this is going because it's a short-range plan. At the section 4 at the back, 4 or 5 pages, is where they start to look at initial projects for service changes, candidates, and capital improvement projects. So it builds to that. The first 40-some pages are definitely looking at the existing conditions. So, and I've sat here and read you guys, well, 3 of you guys are new, but the prior board and I have went through the bad news with this transit agency several times, so I don't know that we need to rehash all that. But the ridership hasn't been good this last year. It's been on a downward trend for several years. And, there's certain diamonds in the rough. For example, Route 199, as mentioned earlier, the Gasky-Hyuchi route has actually been the one that's been gaining ridership the last couple of years. Everything else has been in the tank. Interesting enough. And Route 3, within the Crescent City routes, Route 3 has actually been doing a little better than some of the others. But in general, overall ridership down, and we've all speculated on why. Certainly there's another transit agency in the county that's probably not helping us out much. Then the second half of the document does an overview of the public involvement that's been part of this project on page 47. And that's right after a few pages that look at other prior history planning documents that we've been through. And this is a unique project in that we did not have one giant project where they did the public outreach and then this traditional planning that we're doing now where we talk about routes and services. This one we split. Most of the public involvement was done separately by a different consultant a year before. We did an onboard survey and then we did a number of focus groups and stakeholder interview groups. So this one sort of, they're capturing and synthesizing that into this document here, starting on page 47. And I think I've provided the board. If anyone doesn't have a copy of one of these documents that we ever talk about or you see mentioned in here, just shoot me an email and I'll get it to you because we have had a lot of turnover and I didn't want to overwhelm all the new board members with too much documentation. But I do believe that Alex, Vidette, and Bob did get a copy of the Shapiro work and the onboard survey. So then we go into the exciting part there towards the end. Well, actually, let's not skip too far unless I start coughing too badly. So the summary, the key themes starting on page 52 that we heard from the public. And these are from folks that we don't get a lot of visitors here that come to talk to the board to request service or provide direct feedback. So this is a great way to find out what folks really want and what they like and don't like about the system. So, the key thing is that, there's significant progress has been made to improve bus stop amenities, but they're still the weakest part of the service. We heard that loud and clear. Bus stop cleanliness, we hear that some, although I think we've put a lot of effort. I know Chuck and his team has. That's one item where the model as constituted currently has that responsibility on First Transit as part of everything else they do. I'd like to continue the thought of someday finding a separate entity to do the bus stop cleaning and just take it away and not have it be a burden because Chuck and his team have enough to do. And in my experience, it's never really in their specialty zone to clean bus stops. They can do it, but it's probably not their expert, it's not what they went to college for, let's put it that way. And then so page 53 looks at potential tiers for new bus stop locations, a couple of which these are already in process. I've just had a land survey done on 2 of these at the Rancheria and at Pacific and A. So those should be installed before the end of the fiscal year. That's been moving slowly. But then we have another list of another 8 or so that are ripe for shelter installation. And that's just here in the Crescent City area. There are more needs out on the regional routes too. Key theme number 2 is we need to implement more technology. And I think the board has been completely supportive of this and in agreement, and mainly just wondering how fast can we do this. So we actually have a standing item now on our meetings where we give you guys an update on the deployment of new technologies, because we're doing so much so quick. And plus, this also helps it keep moving if I have to keep reporting on it every time we get together. So I'll update you on that stuff in a little bit. We won't go on much further on that here, but that was one of the key findings of the plan is we're way behind the rest of the transit world on technology. Even though we've started catching up, we have a lot of work to do there. See, and then we go into the fun stuff at the very end where they potential projects. And these are the first, kind of the first teaser look in the process at what we might want to do next, some changes we might want to make. Let's see, that starts on page 78. Oh, well, let's look at the performance standards real quick and see what Cliff come up for us on those. So starting on page 64 are some proposed performance standards. So, first of all, on page 65 shows what we're doing now as a transit system. And this is based on riders, passengers per revenue hour. So that's a really good measuring stick of efficiency because, I mean, it can be manipulated, but in general, it shows you how well consumed the product is when we produce it. So if we don't serve, if we only operate on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we might have tremendous productivity, but maybe we're not meeting the community's needs, so it's a trade-off. But right now, this shows what we're doing over the last 8 or so years. And you see it trending slightly negative. And that's through, there's been some variations. We added some service during this period, and then we've reduced some service a couple of times. But still, the trend's a little bit in the wrong direction. So currently, we're at about 6 riders per hour system-wide. Some of our routes way better than that, some worse. Here's a little more detail at the route level about that productivity on page 66. So looking at the last 3 years. Like you see, for example, the Route 20 going in the wrong direction, and only last year it checked in at 2.7 riders per hour, which is concerning, considering how much money we spend on that route. Now, it is funded by separate federal funding that could only be used on that kind of route, true, but it's still, it's concerning. Those numbers aren't very good. Where in the Route 199, it's been a concern for many, many years, but it's going in the right direction. It's up to 2.6, so it's almost as productive as the 20 at this point. So it's starting to rebound, and we have some theories. A lot of the, some of the things that the gentleman brought up that he doesn't like has actually probably added more riders. So we stop at the high school, we stop at Walmart, we hit some key stops in and out of town before we forced everyone to transfer and backtrack, which we heard a lot of negative feedback about. It was faster, though. He's right about that. Then moving on. So here's where on page 67 the consultants are offering some potential targets for the standards based on different, the realistic thing is your Crescent City local routes are always going to produce more ridership than the regional stuff that goes a long ways through the small towns. So they're proposing a target of 12 riders per hour for the locals and a minimum of 9, for example. That's a typo, there is no Route 10. Route 20 and 199, they're proposing a target of 4 and a minimum of 2.5. Dollar Ride, a target of 4.5, which is extremely productive, and a minimum of 3, which is still pretty productive. So that shows you how good our Dollar Ride productivity is now, that they could even propose that good of numbers. Because most of the places I've worked in my life, 3 is what you shoot for, and you live with 2. But so it shows you how productive we are here, because our town is small, and our Chuck and his staff are really awesome. And then system-wide, a target of 7 riders per hour and a minimum of 5.8, which I think is where we're at now. I believe we were just under 6. So that's the proposed performance standards by route category. Okay. Table 17 on page 68's got some really interesting stuff. Earlier, you heard me complain about how we don't have enough management and we have more service, not enough managing. And I think you see that when you look at the table 17, which is entitled some peer agencies comparison of cost per vehicle hour. So what this is the cost of their drivers, the cost of their fuel, and the cost of all their management personnel combined, divided by number of hours that they run, which is their schedule. So you see that ours is lower than everyone else's by quite a ways. The only other one that's in the same ballpark of efficiency and leanness is Lake Transit, which is Mark Wall's other project before he shed this one, and I came on board to help you. So I don't think that's a coincidence, because he built them both the same model. Part-time remote managing, very, very lean, and just try to make it work. But then the other ones all have much higher cost per hour, because they have full-time management, for example, maybe more than one FTE management. And it could be other things, you know, there could be administrative charges, there a city or county could be sticking them with some intergovernmental fees. You never know how these numbers get, you know, how the soup is cooked, but the numbers don't lie. So we're way leaner than anyone else. So I think we're going to see our number go up no matter what we do, even if you keep the manager's hours equal or less, because our labor costs are going up due to the minimum wage compliance issues and some of the compaction issues that I know Chuck would love to. I think, Chuck, you're going to talk to them about that at the workshop in April. Some of our issues within our labor force with compaction. Okay, then we move on. We look at our fare box recovery ratio, which is, I think they just used the TDA system-wide standard of 10%. We are getting down near there. We're around 11 or so this last year. We used to be around 17% or so just a few years ago when ridership was better. So that, then, yeah, okay, so then there's actually table 18 on page 71 addresses that with, you can see the decline in fare box. And I think the huge jump, certainly I have to take some of the blame for the big jump in 17, 18, or drop, I should say, because we restructured the fares to where it's no longer $30 to go to Arcata one way. We made it like 10 bucks. It's now a distance-based fare. It's still, I scratch my head every time I think why more people aren't taking advantage of that. And I guess it's probably a marketing issue. Maybe everyone hasn't heard about it. But that's probably caused what had already been a steady decline to precipitously drop more last year, was because we took away that $30 to Arcata fare and made it more in the realm of $10, which is, to me, a lot more affordable for our people. It's probably the right thing to do, but it did hurt our fare box recovery for sure. I think that's, any other questions on the stats? And we're going to go into the projects at the end.
Joe, in looking at this, this is just subject to our view. There's no vote on this.
No, it's just information.
So, isn't this a problem? I appreciate the fact we have problems unique to Del Norte County, but isn't this the bottom line on this issue is just putting more people in the seats of the buses? That's going to solve this problem?
Yes. So
whether it's $66 revenue, or as Humboldt, I think, was $114 in looking at that chart, they're putting more people in their seats per mile. So I think this comes down to the fact of what do we have to do to incentivize bus ridership?
Yes, but let me make a point, because there are two different kind of statistics there. So to fix the, if the metric is based on a passenger metric, then yes, it can be fixed by just getting more riders. And even fare box recovery, we just talked about getting more people to pay, even if they're paying less. It's kind of the old discount sale theory of retailing. That will do it. More people will get ride, they pay a little less, but still cumulatively we get more money. So that would solve that part. I do want to make note that table 17 back on 68 is more about our administrative structure. It's not so much about the passenger doesn't fit into this equation. This is how many scheduled hours we put out divided by our overall agency cost. That's what that is. So that one just, our drivers don't make much money and our administration is super lean. That's what that talks about. When you get to like table 18 on 71, yes, increasing ridership will make those numbers look better.
When we do the Arcata route, would you tell me where that specifically goes to in Arcata?
Maybe talk about the stops along the way too. Yeah. Chuck's going to help because my voice is going out.
It goes to the transportation center right in Arcata, same place where the Redwood Coast system goes to and Greyhound goes to.
Is that downtown Crescent City? You're talking about the plaza or anything like that?
But yeah, right by the baseball fields.
Uh-huh.
Kind of 2 blocks over from the downtown plaza area, between Highway 101 and the plaza.
What do you think is the draw to go to Arcata?
Family visits, doctor visits, go to Humboldt State, go to school down there, go shopping, plug into the Redwood transit system that's there and be able to get into Eureka and go shopping. There's the connection, the interline connection with Greyhound that a lot of people will use. So there's several reasons for people to go there.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate the pinch hit.
I did use that. I used that. Yeah, I just used that line recently. My car broke down. I had to go between here and there.
Then, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. The last couple of performance standards on 74 and 75 look at kind of inward focused standards like on-time performance, which is one of the things that has improved a lot in the last couple of years. It was really shaggy when I got here. But we had to do some hard choices on streamlining routes, getting them out of parking lots, cutting off a few dead segments to make them go quicker. So that's been effective. Now the transfers are met more, and we have improved. Are we at the target standard of 90%? We don't really know because we don't have an AVL system that tells us that data. So we're working on that. Anecdotally, Chuck can go out and sample, but that's never 100. That's never totally accurate. And also the miles between road calls is a great measurement of our maintenance program, and Nick's been doing an amazing job. So we're going to set the standards pretty high because Nick has set the standards high lately. We don't have very many road calls, and that means less service interruptions, so it's really a good thing. But you do want a standard for that because, we may not be able to kidnap and keep Nick forever. So then, let's see. Yeah, those kind of inward-looking performance standards extend all the way to page 77, okay. And then at the end, section 4 is just a real brief teaser section on some potential projects that we'll be considering starting with our April workshop. We're going to be really digging deep. We're going to get this document, Tech Memo 1, which was a few months ago. They'll be put together, plus the new chapter on service alternatives and capital plan, and we'll go through that in detail off camera on our own. We'll do a tour of the shop for all the new board members and stuff. And that'll be a really exciting meeting. But these are some teasers of some of the stuff we're thinking about. And again, it all comes down to the board's comfort with the financials being there to support this, because we don't want to yo-yo our riders and give them something that we can't keep for very long. So some of the candidate service improvements that are on the list for now, and this could change, is we touched on the one earlier we think we found funding for. This would be to reinstate routes 1 and 3 on the Saturday platform, which is also our holiday platform. We received a lot of input about that during the market research, which was right after the cut. So it was right after the cut in late 17, so that was a perfect time to get everyone's anger about that. So we did hear a lot. I think people will appreciate that coming back. Another one is implement Sunday service. That's never been done here before. And I've been through a couple stops in my career bringing Sunday service to a place that never had it before. So I can offer some feedback on that. There's usually a lot of push for it, but it is usually the quietest day of the week. And so ridership often doesn't meet what you think it will. But if you're able to live with that, it really would add a hole in the local folks' mobility if they could get around.
Didn't we have a lot of people say that was important to them, a Sunday route?
We did, Bob. Yeah, we heard that loud and clear. It came out of the market research. Yep. Another one was provide later evening service, which we also heard from the market research study and our onboard survey. We had just went the other direction by a half an hour and cut service from 7:30 to 7 during the funding crisis of a year and a half ago, but it's something that could be considered to add back. The fourth one is the exciting one that we touched on a little bit. It's interesting how these plans and reality can sometimes get ahead of one another or happen concurrently, but the short range plan especially in the market outreach when we found out how the yellow bus rules go, and it seems like it's very similar to the other communities that have robust student ridership on their public transit. So there is probably some market here in town for kids that live too far to walk but are not provided the school bus. So the consultants are going to be looking into that. It's called Pilot Tripper Service, and we might be able to start doing something like that this fall for the 1920 academic year. So that's why we're thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great to find a grant source so we could make that free and give it a little jump start. But we don't have any alignments set up or anything. I mentioned a couple areas that just off my expertise looking at the map might work, but we need to do a lot more planning work on that. And we need to collaborate with the school district to understand more what they do. Another option might be to, one of the casualties of the service cuts of 2017 was, Route 10 went away and Route 20 became the only service that we provide to and from Klamath to Crescent City or the other way to Arcata. The Uric Tribal Transit Service is growing and taking a lot of the needs for sure. But we may still want to consider like a morning trip, because that was our best trip. It was the morning one that come up here at about 7:30 or so, maybe left Klamath at like 7. We could deadhead a bus down there. There's a number of things we could do to reinstate just that piece from Klamath to the north. So the consultants are going to look at that. I mean, the Uric Tribal Service is running like a passenger van full of people at that time, but maybe there's still some latent demand, so it's something to look at. That one could cost some money. It may not be feasible, but they're considering it, because we did hear some negative impact or negative feedback that people would love to have that. Some people would love to have that back. 3 people particularly asked for it at one of the public events. Number 6 is consider some seasonal service that would augment some of our tourist-based routes. Like, for example, 199 does way better in the summer than it does during fall, winter, and spring. So what if we had many more trips during the summer, and maybe we're 3 round trips a day. Maybe that would be the winter schedule, but maybe we could have a summer schedule that would be more robust. Possibly the same kind of thing on Route 20. It's definitely busier in the summer. So that would and that would be possible, so they're looking into that. And then the last one specifically mentioned here is, and this is probably more in our CTSA realm that that chapter's coming next, so we'll probably talk about that in April. But that might be a CTSA project, but maybe there's some, excuse me, some non-emergency medical niche that we could fill if the funding were robust enough. The CTSA is potentially going to bring us some money, but it's not that much. So, but the consultant team is going to evaluate if there's a low-cost model that we could implement that would help the community with some of the return medical from long distance. So it could even be some sort of reimbursement-based program or something that's where we don't really drive them, but maybe someone else does, and we can help offset some of the costs. There's a lot of different models out there. Yeah, and then we talk about a few sorry, it's been a rough week. Candidate capital improvement projects. Those are projects like bus stops that we've heard about. So number 1 was we need to try to set up a mechanism so we can at least install 2 to 5 new bus shelters per year. We think we have the funding, at least in the short term, to obtain that many, and we just need to have staff time to identify the sites, ensure they're in the right-of-way, just deliver the projects, which is not quite as simple as people think. Not as simple as it should be. One of the other ones is we'd like to add another one of the low-floor sedans to the fleet instead of in replacement of one of the bigger vehicles. It's sort of not a perfect match. People really like this vehicle. It's become the #1 dollar ride vehicle. We bought it, we thought it would be the #2. It's quickly been the #1. They run it pretty much all day, and it's easy to get in and out of. It's much more fuel efficient. It can get into little alleys and driveways that other vehicles can't get in. So we want to have 2 of those in the fleet. So that's a pretty easy one. And they're cheaper than the regular big vehicles too, which is good. The only issue with them is they've had some stops and fits and starts on their production, but I think they're back in business, so that's good. We have issues with the shop.
Joe, can I just interrupt you a second?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
What's the vehicle type? of that small little van?
It's called an MV1 Mobility Ventures. It doesn't mean MV like the operations contractor.
General Motors?
No, they have their own plant. Yeah, that's one of the issues, that they've had some stops and starts on maintaining production and staying in business. But they've been around for 7 or 8 years now. They've just been a couple of hiccups. So hopefully they continue to make them, because we like them a lot. Even Nick likes them. So that's good. The next few projects are all issues with the current shop. The shop needs some investment, and we have a limited amount of money to do it, so that's gonna be fun. Project 7 is just our general bus rehabs and replacements. We have one open grant that we're waiting to hear yay or nay on, that would actually rehabilitate a couple of our large buses mid-life and extend their life rather than just replace them. Kind of a way, because if you look at our numbers, I mean, I don't have it here, but you don't have to be a mathematician nor a brain surgeon to see that right now, unless some new funding comes in, we're a little short of being able to continue to maintain our fleet. The rural areas in California are having a bit of a capital funding crisis right now. So one of the ways we could help it a little would be to do a midlife rehab for about $100,000 a piece of a vehicle that would cost closer to $200 to buy. So we have a grant in to see if they'll give us money for 2 of those. For our Freightliners that are about 4 or 5 years old now, we could get another 4 or 5 years out of them if we get funding. If not, they're probably going to last about 7, unfortunately. And then at the end, there's, they're going to talk, the plan will need to prioritize these capital needs, because we don't have the money for all of them, and certainly not all at once. And that's it. I got through it. Any questions?
Going back to what you had just said about the life of the vehicles, that's 7 more years or 7 years total?
7 years total if we don't do a rehab. That's
Right.
That's our current fleet average.
Okay.
Now the diesels tend to last longer, so maybe we can get 8 or 9 out of them. The only problem is we put the diesels on the Arcata run, so they pile the miles up much faster. So yeah, but right now on our TAM plan, which is our asset management plan that we had to work on, develop, and submit to FTA, we put 7 as the max life of the vehicles, and even that because our operating environment's tough here. So nationally, 7 used to be the standard for our type of vehicles. Then they tried to extend it, and we're like, no, for here, that's an extension enough. So 7's what we submitted for our vehicle life here.
Joe, regarding that Klamath Run, right now there's, the tribe is putting out a bus. I guess it's pretty full, right? And ours aren't. Mm-hmm. Isn't there a possibility where we could just do a survey of those people who are riding that bus? In other words, we could ride the bus and do the survey of saying, what's your ideal schedule? When would you like to leave? When would you like to arrive? Where would you like to go? Take that information, and then we could tailor that schedule to meet these people's needs, maybe a little bit better than what the tribe is doing. Okay, well, thank you.
That is a good idea. We can ask the tribe if they would let us do an onboard survey with their people, and if they agree, then that would be easy. If they say no, then we could try to find some other way to reach the riders. But yeah, that would be a way to find out. And that's what we want. I mean, we want to avoid this competition over the same little group of people, which I'm afraid that's what's happened. Our ridership went to them instead of growing both of them.
We could survey them once they got off the bus.
Yeah.
Therefore, you wouldn't need the tribe permission.
Yeah, if they wouldn't play along, you're right. That would be the other way, to be try to catch them while they're in town when they get off the bus.
I believe originally when we ran the Klamath Run. Oh, sorry. Thanks. I believe originally when we ran the Klamath Run and we had the high numbers of ridership into town, the bus left here at 6 a.m. and actually did the loop in the Glen and came back, and I believe they got into town about 7:15. I'm not sure, we could go back and look at the old records, but they were pretty full buses. Because we did have a lot of riders that were coming in for meetings, and they would end up staying most of the day and going back on usually on the Arcata bus I believe the 3 o'clock bus had a lot of riders that took that into Klamath there at Paymay.
Makes sense. Do you know when they moved? So it sounds like over at some point in the past, the trip moved a little later in the morning, or did that?
I think maybe it did, because it seems like when I drove it, I left here at 6.
Okay.
You had to be leaving the Cultural Center at 6 a.m. for that particular route. That was the earliest route that left, besides the Arcata run that actually went to Smith River first.
Well, we can see if we can research the old schedules and find some record of maybe that did, maybe it got moved later at some point.
All right, are we exhausted on this topic? All right, let's move on to update on transit technology projects and status of deployments.
Okay, so this is our standing item. We have made some progress, but it's, been in fits and starts. Not as much progress on one project and maybe more than we thought on another, but that's how this business works. So just kind of run them through, because we have a lot of new folks here. We have a guest in the audience. So table 1 shows stuff that's already in progress or in place. So onboard video surveillance, we got that done last year. Our fleet's 100% video equipped and functioning. So that's been a good one. We had special grant funds to do that. We implemented our first computerized software for paratransit dial-a-ride scheduling, and that got implemented. It was pledged as the part of the new contract with First Transit that started January of 17, and we actually went live in September of 17 with that. So we've been using it about 1.5 years now. The monthly reports are starting to look good. It took a while to master it, like any new software, especially the first software. We were using magnets and whiteboards, and it was really old school transit here until 2017. But we've really come a long ways. I think the staff's doing a great job with it. So I put it as 95% done. One of these days we'll just call it 100. We're just wanting to, there was a lot, we had to do a lot of data cleaning there for a while. So once we're sure the data's clean and being entered properly, then we'll call it 100% done. We're almost there. Google Transit, we every time we do a service change, that's one of the things I do is loaded in GTFS format up to Google so that they include it in Google Maps. So if you do a Google Maps search and you push the little bus, the light rail looking icon, it'll give you the public transit options. So we've been live on that since at least 2015 that I know of, and we continue to be. So that's done. What we don't do a good job is we don't plaster it inside our buses or on the outside. A lot of people don't know that we're on there, but if they actually try to use the app, they'll find out we are. The GeoTabs is a little vehicle location module that plugs into the electronics module of each vehicle, like the fuse box area, and that emits the location of the bus, and that's been deployed since 2017. It's part of the new First Transit contract that started then. Its particular public-facing dashboard's pretty primitive. We can use it. Chuck and I and Nick have been playing with it for a year or so. But what we are doing now is it's going to be the engine, so to speak, for our new double map project, which is on the next page. The double map is more of a sophisticated kind of automated vehicle location system that has public-facing stuff. It has an app and everything. It's for the public to consume as well as dispatchers and myself. So double map is not deployed yet. We had a very good call. Was that yesterday or the day before? Day before yesterday, we had another implementation call, and this is something I need you guys to back me up on. The way double map works is it'll do a certain amount of things for the transit agency and for the public just on its own and driven by those little emitters inside the buses. But it will not capture for the agency where people get on and off. There's a lot of things it won't do unless you put a tablet computer in each vehicle. We happen to have a grant that needs to be spent down by this summer that's for safety and security, and one of the things double map can do is have a panic button on the tablet so that if there's an incident and the driver feels threatened at all or sees an emergency out in the field, they can hit that panic button and automatically alert dispatch. That will help us pay for these tablets. So I'd like the board's permission to move ahead with adding tablets as part of double map. We just got the quote today. It'll eat up most of that grant, but we were scrambling to find things to spend it on anyway. So I think that'll give us full functionality with double map and really maximize our investment. And First Transit only offered to pay for the base system. They weren't going to pay for the tablets. So I think we should pony up and partner on that.
Do you need a motion for that?
No, maybe we can bring it to, maybe at the later meeting, but we're already in the planning stages and I sort of committed you guys, but I just want you to know about it. It seems like the right thing to do. It really does. It's going to give us a lot more functionality. That way we'll get, the planning geek and me, we're going to see where people get on and off at. So we can, right now we just get a list of how they paid and what trip, and to get that I have to go into an Excel sheet and just stare at the screen. It's kind of clunky. But with double map we'll be able to see where exactly they got on. Okay, they got on at Cultural Center and they got off at the high school, or we'll get, and that really helps with planning routes to see where people are getting on and off at. So this will give us a lot more data, a lot more usable data. So that project we put at 25%. We talked about we should have it in place by June maybe is what I tried to hold them to, and they said they thought they could do that. So there's work to be done, but it's underway, and a couple meetings from now I think we'll be able to demonstrate it. The mobile ticketing one hasn't been as happy of a story. This is the one where we would have already been launched if we had our own bank account as Redwood Coast within the county, but we don't. And when I asked for one, they told me no. So then we turned to First Transit because they're currently handling our fares for us. So all day long people pay to ride the bus, and they come in and buy passes at the office, and that money currently goes into a First Transit account at a local bank. That's a national, international account, of course, but it goes into a First Transit account and then they credit it back to us. I would much prefer they were depositing it into our account, and then we'd see and be able to report on that, but that's not the way the model's been historically, and the county wouldn't let us do the token transit thing because they didn't want this vendor to have access to the county's account. So we were kind of at a standoff. First Transit said they thought they could help out and get it done, but it's been really slow. So currently they're trying to use the current First Transit fares account to link into token transit. And this will be so people can buy their bus pass on their phone before the bus comes up and just show it to our driver. The money then is, they have a credit card loaded in, so then the money eventually gets batched to us every week or month, which would be great, the added convenience for the rider. But we got to find a revenue account that'll do it. So First Transit's having trouble getting their corporate people to approve it.
Joe, I'm going to ask that we can move along. I have a competing chamber board meeting in 14 minutes.
Okay, so that's that. That's a sad story on that. The mobile Wi-Fi, I haven't been able to do anything other than these ballpark quotes on that, but we'll keep working on it. And page 3 is stuff that we don't feel it's like low priority. It's not appropriate for us right now. So that's the end of that. Any questions on the technology update? Hopefully we have the token transit thing running by the next meeting, but I've told you that before. I know you're tired of hearing that.
I do have a question about the Wi-Fi. So were you ever able to get in touch with the U.S. Cellular gentleman? Andrew?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we talked about it, and but I haven't received anything from him. Maybe I was supposed to reach out to him.
I don't know, but he and I had discussed that, possibly U.S. Cellular, just because in our community, U.S. Cellular tends to be the better. Well, when you're out and about in the trees and stuff, you still have reception. So anyway, his name is Andrew. He's the manager of the U.S. Cellular store here.
I think he did check in with me, and I responded, "Yeah, let's do it, and let's get some pricing." And then let me poke him again and keep it moving because I haven't heard anything lately.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So verbal report. I'll be super brief because I'm running out of voice. We had a fun marketing event in January. Thank you guys for participating. We now have a list of about 35, mostly lodging, but also some apartments in high schools and colleges where we have information stations set up. Most places they're just little plastic brochure holders with if I'm empty, call or email thing, and that's working because we got an email yesterday from the hospital, and Chuck and I are going to go over there and fill it up today. So the next step would be to take it to another, to make sure those keep getting filled up. So I'll do that when I come back in March. We have an audit that I've got to be here for. So I'll be back in early March, and we'll refill everyone and maybe try to expand that to another 20 or 30 locations, like apartments and stuff. So that's going good. I mean, I think that's a shot in the arm for the marketing. One thing was great, everyone was happy to see us. I didn't get thrown out of a single hotel lobby. It was weird. You know, we had talked, you had said, no, everyone's going to love you. And we're like, no, they're not. But they were happy. Everyone was happy to find a spot for us. And for example, the hotel I'm in now, we're still there. They got us a spot, so that's good. We talked about the April meeting, so that'll be to look at the detail at the plan, and we'll probably have a first look at our preliminary 1920 budget as well. That's pretty much all I've got.
Let's go for item 12, First Transit Operations.
Hi, Chairman Berkowitz, we haven't met. I'm Chuck Clarkson. I'm
Hi,
the
Chuck.
First Transit representative here in town. I know we're on short time, so I'll be quickly. We're doing fine on staffing, not rate. We're doing okay. We're keeping the buses running, but we did lose a driver. Fortunately, we were able to hire another driver and just recently got him into revenue service. But we're looking to find another driver as well so that we can keep our routes populated and a little easier and a little less overtime for us to be paying out. So that's what's going on there with that. We don't have any buses broke down right now. Nick continues to do a good job to keep us up and going. We've had 2 road calls since the last time we met. One was down towards Arcata, which of course means it's difficult for us to keep things on time because we're an hour and a half away if they're all the way down there before we can get there with a new bus, a replacement bus to keep the route going. So we do what we can to shuffle things here in town to keep the Smith River on time, and so that's always fun when that happens. Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often. The other road call was here in town. We were hardly missed any time at all getting another bus out there and keeping that route going. On the 4th, we had a little bit of a weather event that I'm sure you're remembering, and that evening, when I drove over Last Chance Grade and saw the amount of water that was on the road, and my thermometer said 32 degrees at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I gave Joe a call and talked about not running the last Klamath run that night. That's the only route that we've had impacted by the weather. You know, knock on all the wood you can find. But that was one route that we did pull the plug on in mid-afternoon, and Joe got the word out on Facebook, and we tried to let people know so that they didn't get stranded in town. That's my quick report. So, any questions?
Okay.
Chuck's done a great job of keeping service going in some pretty difficult weather. Because I remember Chuck's predecessor had a little less tolerance to weather, so I remember that one winter we canceled a lot of service, and I know that impacted folks. So, you know, I really want to thank Chuck and his team for hanging in there and delivering in the sideways rain and other weather forms.
It's a testament to our drivers' ability too.
Yep.
That we're able to get through and plug through, and they deal with that stress, and really appreciate their commitment to keeping people moving.
All right, thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.
All right, do we have any announcements?
One quick one. Just really regarding the composition of our agendas, it seems like there isn't a space, well, there wasn't on this one for public comment. And then within the staff reports too, I think it would help under the recommendations to include take public comment.
Good idea.
I mean, having our... Okay. I mean, there is a thing on there at the bottom that says any member can talk, but even in the staff reports, it doesn't set aside a time to say, let's take some public comment. Besides that, we have no announcements.
All right. Lunch. Thank you, Alex. Any other comments, announcements? All right, we will be adjourned until April 22nd at 1:30 p.m. Thank you.